Welcome everyone to the Synoptus Lightning Round. My name is Cameron Ames. I'm the CTO of Synoptus.
And I'm David Rettig. I'm the CEO of Synoptus.
Now, David, we've got a treat in for you today. We've got a guest who's a senior manager at Cisco talking to us about IT business alignment. Now, have you had any experiences with IT business alignment, or rather, have you had any experiences with IT business misalignment?
Yeah, actually, my first job as a IT director was with an organization where the IT department was so far out of alignment that when the CEO interviewed me, he said, we call them the Department of No, and he had moved them out of the main facility and into a different office on the same campus, where he said, I just can't stand to look at them anymore.
Oh, wow.
So they were that far out of alignment that they were actually put in a separate building.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so that really resonates with me too. I've had similar experiences, although none quite that extreme. I have specific memories about one company that I worked with where, it seems like there were missed expectations no matter what the circumstances were. And whether that was on IT side or business's side, it seemed like they never were quite able to meet in the middle and truly move together in order to further the strategic goals of the organization through IT. But I think that our guest today has some words of wisdom for us. So we're going to talk to Bram van Spaendonk from Cisco. He's a senior manager there, and he's had quite a bit of experience in this area. So let's listen in.
Welcome to Synoptus Lightning Round, where we talk to business leaders about accelerating business value through technology. 6 questions with some of the sharpest minds of business. Today I'm talking to Bram van Spaendonk about IT alignment. How are you doing today, Bram?
Oh, very good, David. Thanks for having me.
And ready to rapid fire some questions about accelerating business value?
Sure, hit me.
Okay, let's dive into it. Give me a minute on yourself and your company.
Okay, well, I work at Cisco. I work in IT at Cisco. So I work in IT in an IT company, which is pretty interesting. And David, it won't surprise you to hear that we're a Cisco shop, right? We eat our own dog food. And sometimes people say, like, can we not call it dog food? But the reality is that, when you're the first adopter of a new technology or a new release, sometimes it is dog food, right? And that's exactly the reason we do it. So make sure that we, when we sell it to customers, that it's been tested, it's enterprise proof, and we give feedback to the business units. And then we share with customers what has worked, what hasn't worked. So that's what we call Cisco and Cisco, and that's what I do. I'm a manager on that team.
Nice. So give me a minute where you're telling me about how IT alignment accelerates business value for Cisco.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, when you talk about IT alignment, to me, it is about, speaking in terms of business outcomes, about, what's the business value that you're trying to derive. Clearly, we come from a world where, in IT, if there's an outage or something didn't work, people would point, oh, it's the network, or the network's like, oh, it's in the data center, or it's the load balancer, or it's the storage team. It would go, and it's clearly that's not IT alignment. So we started to work in what we call service owners. They're end-to-end responsible for a service that we provide in a service catalog, and whether it's dial tone or voice services or video, remote connectivity. And all those owners need to speak, to your point, about what's the business value, what's the outcome, whether that's in terms of cost, whether that's in terms of the adoption or the leverage of that service, things like compliant or risk profile, user experience, speed, quality, things that clearly the business understands, rather than, hey, this connector didn't work or that went down, or So yeah, IT alignment is about IT coming together to deliver a service to the business.
Great. So that sounds a lot like maybe like an idle service catalog model.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. It's like a service catalog, service model, ITIL. There's different methodologies out there, and yeah, we've adopted our own using the best practices that are out there in the industry.
So what was the biggest challenge or current challenge, either in implementing or currently with IT alignment?
Well, David, we know each other for some time, and I don't think you'll be surprised about me telling you that the biggest challenge is culture, right? It's people. it's layer 8 and 9. Sometimes people refer to it, right? Politics
Right.
and people. It's the folks behind the keyboard. So yeah, it is about, the change management of people, reskilling the workforce. Change is hard. People resist it. People fight it. It's a natural behavior. So yeah, it's rewarding the desired behavior. It's celebrating success, creating momentum, right? Using a change methodology to make sure that this is not an IT exercise, that this is not just like, hey, the flavor of the week or the flavor of the month, like, hey guys, everybody, we're going to, align IT, and we're going to speak in business terms. It requires much more than that. And it's a commitment that I think needs to be aligned from the top as well as from the bottom up. So yeah, I know that's not a rapid fire, but hopefully that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And so once you've dealt with that layer in 8 and 9, the people and the politics that you were talking about, can you give me an example of a positive outcome that came from implementing IT and business alignment?
Yeah, I can, David. I mean, I can, of course, talk about specific examples how we've reduced, downtime, or if we've been able to increase productivity, or, reduce our bug counts. But I think if you ask about the biggest outcome, I think the biggest takeaway, it's about trust. It's about trust. It's about confidence, credibility that the IT organization needs to earn, quite frankly, to have a seat at the table and to talk with the business and speak in business language. Very different from, I think, us growing up in IT, where we had a business requirement documents that we would throw over the wall, and then the business sometimes would suggest, like, can we use this tool? And then in IT we would say, like, oh, don't suggest tools. That's our job. There was this very specific delineation. But yeah, if you're aligned in IT and you work with the business, you create that trust, that confidence, and you earn a seat at the table to be much more strategic in IT rather than fighting fires and fixing leaks and being a plumber, just patching, but really being an enabler rather than an order taker.
And a lot of IT departments talk about being order takers, and by establishing that trust and confidence that you're talking about, you move from order taker into that trusted advisor kind of role.
That's right. Exactly.
Okay. So if someone was considering a new IT alignment initiative in their organization, what's a recommendation that you would make?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, right? Where to start? Well, I mentioned earlier, right, this is not an IT exercise, right? This is much broader. It's a corporate commitment. And I would say having conversation and take a change methodology, change management methodology, right? Creating a sense of urgency, aligning leadership, define what the destination is. Where do you think success, how that looks like? Building commitment in your organization, meaning have people understand what's in it for me, why they need to hop on board. Mobilizing the organization, meaning, eliminate the barriers and do that quickly. As we've learned, there's nothing more frustrating than people ready to go, align, and then there's roadblocks that, we've not taken care of. Celebrating quick wins publicly. I mentioned this earlier, right? Reward the desired behavior. Embed it in the existing processes. Don't start all the way from scratch. You have operational practices. You have, ops reviews or business scorecards. Start creating business value metrics in there. And when people do that publicly, reward those people and celebrate that. So I think it's a big picture, David, that it's not like just one tool to implement or one book to read. This is something that I think as a leadership team, you got to talk about, create that commitment and that overall buy-in across the organization beyond IT. And there's lots of studies out there on how to do that and what methodology, whether it's ITIL or some of the other ones, David, you mentioned, TOGAF. But yeah, start with creating that overall change management plan. That's that direction I would start.
Yeah, that's absolutely great advice. I completely agree with you that most IT initiatives, whether it's alignment or something else, fail in the change management process. It's not a bits and bytes problem.
Exactly, and it's weird being both of us being in IT, David, is that sometimes we say technology is the easy part, right? It's the stuff around it that is much harder to do. And in fact, I know this is not a question, but unsolicited, And this is what differentiates IT leaders from pure technologists. Right? Technologists, they're done after the application is live or it works or the machine starts up, they're done. We as leaders, we need to see it all the way through to adoption, to user experience, making sure that we derive the business value from the initial investment we made to work on this project. So it's a career differentiator, and it's what sets us apart, is to be able to do that with the business, because it cannot just be IT doing it.
I completely agree. Completely agree. So last question. Take a minute, plug anything you want. You can talk about Cisco, talk about your favorite book, and talk about a charity. Shout out to your family, anything you want.
Well, I'd love to give a shout out to my family. Now, on the business side, I would encourage folks that want to learn from this and want to, benefit from the experience that other organizations have gone through this and then learn from them. Here at Cisco, we have a whole website. It's www.cisco.com/go/Cisco IT. You find a ton of case studies and best practices, and you can engage with other leaders in IT that go through the same challenges. So that's the plug for the business. On the personal side, I'm not sure when you're listening to this, but we're currently in the middle of the COVID crisis. And my one plug is what I heard this morning, what's kind of stuck with me, is that, stay sane, stay safe. You take care of yourself, take care of your family. That's what matters most. And it's times like these that reminds us all of that. Just like you asked me at the beginning, David, when we started this chat here. Take care of one another. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much for the time. I appreciate it. Everybody, Bram van Spaendonk from Cisco, and the website that he gave will be in the comments.
Excellent. We want to say thanks again to Bram for his time and his wisdom in sitting down with David and talking with us. So David, there was obviously a lot within that conversation. Did anything stick out to you?
I was impressed how Bram presented the idea that IT alignment is the foundation of becoming that trusted advisor. When I talk to my fellow geeks, IT folks, one of the things that I always hear is, we want a seat at the table. We want a seat at the table. We want to have influence on things. We don't want to come in after the fact. And the first step in that, becoming that, having that seat at the table, is becoming that trusted advisor, which means being in alignment with the business. If you're not in alignment with the business, you're not going to be a trusted advisor. You're not going to get that seat at the table. How about you?
Absolutely. So for me, I think I had similar sentiments. One thing that really stuck out to me, though, was how he framed IT business alignment, specifically around the services that IT provides, almost like there's an abstraction layer between IT and the business. And that really resonates on so many levels. You think about how many businesses exist with an abstraction layer between their customers and the details of what they do. That's the whole point of existing for so many departments and entire businesses. So to think about IT in that way and what it means as far as your terminology that you're using and how you're phrasing things, that's going to be what's important to a business person, because the smoother you can make that connection in their mind, the easier it is for them to trust you, and the easier it is for you all to be a trusted partner going forward. Exactly like what you were talking about as well there.
Yep, great observations.
All right, and that's it for this episode of the Lightning Round. You can find us on Synoptus.com under the Lightning Round. You can find our posts on LinkedIn and also on Apple Podcasts. Search for Synoptus or Lightning Round, and you can find us there as well. Talk to you soon.